Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Coulter Wonkite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. Miseducation and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We are live, and we are coming to you right here at lifestyleradio.net. I'm your host, Del Graham. Tonight, I am joined by my joint host, Alicia and she is a guest that loves to educate people about the benefits of cannabis and also fights against the stigmatization. But before we learn more, it's time for Alicia and I to have our usual quick little chat. Hello, Alicia. How are you?
Hey, Al. I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm not doing too bad. Yeah, doing all right. I'm at home tonight. I'm not at Cannabis.
Oh, that's a change. And
It
why are
is.
you at home today?
It's because tonight is my wife's birthday. So happy birthday, Gail.
Happy birthday.
I thought when I do the shows from Cannabis, I only actually get to see Gail for about half an hour through the whole day. So by doing, because the time she gets home from work and then I have to leave to go into town and all that to do the show, we don't get to see each other much. So I thought, it's her birthday. I'm going to do the show from town or from home, and we'll have dinner together. So that's what we did.
Awesome. I'm sure she appreciated it.
Yeah. So talking about things appreciated and other things, congratulations. In order, as you've probably seen, I know we've talked about this in the last show, but you weren't part of the last show. Nominated for top podcast at the Canadian Cannabis Awards. What do you think? 2 years back to back.
That's awesome. I think that recognition just reaffirms what we do and just kind of blesses all of the people that we get to showcase. So I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and these nominations are based on the people, our listeners and other people within the cannabis community and that. And then, the top ones are now being presented to everybody to decide on the top podcast. Last year we were finalists. This year we'll see what happens.
Hopefully we'll be number one this year. I have a good feeling we will be.
Yeah, and it does mix video and radio combined in the same category as top podcast. Last year, we ended up second in the top podcast. The other two were video, and we were the only radio.
Oh.
So, yeah, you never know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. I love the recognition because
So do
we're
I.
doing good work. And
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. Recognition from our peers. That's the way I look at it. So.
Yeah,
all right,
sure.
And one other thing that I'd like to touch on before we bring our guest in, being that this is the last time that I'll be able to talk to you while cannabis is illegal in Canada. The next time I speak to you, it will be legal in Canada. Any departing thoughts to the illegal? Whether you say it's, whether you agree with the complete form of the way it's coming out as, because we've all got complaints with it. Believe me, I know that we all got complaints with it, right? Yeah. But now we're saying it's legalized. We're not saying it's illegal. And I'm sure there's some countries that would be nice to be able to say it's legalized in, and would be happy what's being offered. Where some places there's a death penalty or there's lots of jail time, but yeah. So what's your thoughts? Opinions?
I think it's awesome, but I feel for the people who are sitting in jail, and when October 17th comes around who will continue to sit in jail over that plant. I think that pot amnesty needs to be considered, and it needs to be considered now, because the more that those people sit in jail, the more that their civil rights are just being violated, and we should be ashamed as a country for legalizing and not thinking about the people who are sitting in jails, because their crimes become null and void now. You know,
Yeah.
In terms of a cannabis, specifically cannabis possession, or, you know, like, we're not talking about violent crimes, but I think that people who were put in jail specifically for cannabis should be let out. Like, we should be looking at these applications left and right. And the fact that our government is just kind of pushing that aside really concerns me.
The only thing I've heard about the amnesty is simple possession. If there's anything in cultivation attached to that, that might depend on how many plants. Something's telling me it'll come down to they may give amnesty to something that is now legal, but something that's not legal, they may not give amnesty to. That's just my guess.
Or something, I guess.
Correct.
I get it, but in the same regard, like, because, like, we should also look at, like, I guess, like, the factors behind those situations too, right? Because we all know that people in the cannabis world get pushed into corners that, you know, it looks like they were trafficking, but they really weren't. You know what I mean? So
or somebody,
I know, arbitrariness to it, you know, that could be.
A mutual friend of ours who was busted for 4 grams, and they have a record now, whereas, you know, and that was involved with trafficking. And if you're trafficking in 4 grams, you know, really under the new form, you know, giving somebody 30 grams isn't trafficking. You're gifting it to.
You see the little loopholes that, you know, it could become a very, like, a dangerous situation for civil rights when, well, I can prove that I should have amnesty, but I was trafficking, you know, 31 grams, so therefore, no, you can't. I just think it should be a blanket policy for people to get their records quashed. And in terms of, like, I guess, mitigating and, like, you know, sifting through who is eligible and who isn't, I think it just should be in terms of, like, a violent sense, right? Like, people who committed violent crimes in the commission of, you know, some type of cannabis crime should be held responsible. But people who are trafficking and growing and stuff like this, like, I would argue that that criminality is as a result of prohibition. So how can we still continue to hold them criminally responsible, right? Yeah.
Well, why don't we bring in our guests, and part of the, you know, one of those questions we can bring up, you know, what is happening in the U.S. as far as, you know, the amnesty issue, and maybe we'll get a different opinion. So, let's bring in our guests at this time. And I'd like to welcome the person I described as someone who likes to help educate and be involved in educating people about the benefits of cannabis and also fights against the stigmatization. We'd like to welcome Amy Mellen to the Pace Radio Show. Hello, Amy. How are you?
Hey, guys. Hey, Canada. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, we appreciate you coming on and speaking to our listeners from all around the world. Okay, Amy, what we're going to do here is I'm going to hand the reins over to Alicia. She's going to start off with the questions, and I'll just follow in as we go along.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Over to you, Alicia.
Awesome. Thank you. So welcome, Amy. It's my pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries. So my first question for most of our guests is take me to your very first experience with cannabis, whether that's in a medical sense or just a recreational sense. I like to get a feel for the first experience with cannabis.
Well, first of all, I'll let folks know that I didn't really begin cannabis on a regular basis until 2014. My previous husband that I was with for 24 years actually consumed on a daily basis. So believe it or not, I was around somebody every single day who was consuming, but I knew nothing about it. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that there was medicinal benefits he was getting. I had no clue. So you can be around it, you can be exposed to it, and you can still not be part of it at all and really know nothing about it. Yes. So that, I was exposed to it. I knew people that consumed cannabis. I was around it, but I myself did not consume it. And I typically had headaches whenever I was around it. I always got a headache typically around cannabis, and I still do around cigarette smoke. So it wasn't something that I would even stay around when people were consuming it. So I wasn't just exposed to it at all. But my very first real experience learning how to smoke cannabis, I will tell you real quick what led me to looking at cannabis real quick. And that was because the legal meds I was on, one of them made me black out while driving at the wheel. And I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm not putting anybody else at risk. And we started looking into cannabis. My husband and I had spoke about it a little bit. And he had a friend that he worked with whose husband lived, this is when I lived in Oregon. I'm from Portland, Oregon. This gentleman lived in Washington, and he had found that his use of OxyContin for 20 years and the shoulder pain that he was experiencing was about ready to end his career of 20 plus years. And at that point, he decided he better look into another alternative and started growing his own and using cannabis to help with his pain. So we started looking into it. My husband shows up, texts me one day and says, grab a lighter and meet me out at the driveway when he comes home from work. So we drive around off a back road, and we were legal back there in Oregon, rec legal by then. So he takes me out on a back road, and he hands me a bag, and it's got a cute little glass pink pipe that he just bought brand new, and it had a baggie that now I know was an eighth. I had no clue back then what the heck it was. And he hands it to me, and he says, go ahead, baby, load a bowl. I'm like, I looked at him with the big old huge eyes and laughed and said, I have no clue what I'm doing.
So I'm just everyone know which health issues were you dealing with when you had the car accident that you blacked out? Like, why were you taking those pills? Like, what were you trying to remedy?
Yeah, I originally had started on opiates back in 1999, and that was Percocet for hormonal migraines. And I was on about 20 pills of those a month, so just very minor, taking as is. And then when that wouldn't take care of things, I'd end up in the ER with the Demerol shots, the Phenergan for nausea, the whole bit. So, yeah.
Yeah, boy.
So, yeah, my whole opiate started clear back in 1999. So I literally was taking opiates on a regular basis, at least 20 a month from 1999 until I took my last Percocet on July 31st, 2015. 17 years. Yeah. Yeah. And
that
I
long.
was someone that, that long. And I was someone that
health consequences? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes, there are definite health consequences for being on medications that long. So I'll tell you real quick, I was on the Percocet for 7 years when I ended up having a car accident. Totally unrelated to the medication. It was an error. It was an error with the car. And I rolled my vehicle 3 times. And I have mild traumatic brain injury from it, almost lost my left hand and my arm and my life. And you wake up in the hospital. You are fighting for your life. You are someone that has never even been drunk before on alcohol yet. You have never tried illicit drugs. The most you did with cannabis was a couple shotguns off your husband about 10 years before that, and you never felt anything. So why even bother? And you wake up in the hospital with IVs in your arms, and you all of a sudden have morphine pumping into your veins, and you have never known a psychoactive, intoxicating high in your life.
Ooh, I know what that feels like.
Yeah. And you don't know, and you're not aware enough to ask questions because you're literally fighting for your life. So, I mean, they had me in the OR debriefing, getting all the debris out of me for 5 hours. So
that's if you can even talk.
Oh yeah. When I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, had multiple procedures while I was in there, went home, had a home nurse that would come and clean my bandages, administer certain medications, and, evaluate what was going on. And at that point, I literally, I had to be taken to the bathroom. I could not care for myself whatsoever. And by the time I was done through my physical therapies and years, I have gone through 9 procedures just on my left arm. I've had 24 surgeries in 20 years. All of those, I have been under anesthesia. Every time you go under anesthesia, it affects your brain. You actually have a lasting effect on your brain from anesthesia, too, and a lot of people don't know that.
No, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so I have this rollover accident. Yeah, it is dangerous. It can be dangerous for some folks, depending on what their brain situation is. I think for someone like myself who deals with a brain injury from a rollover car accident, anything that's going to put your brain at risk is something that you need to question and you need to ask questions about.
Yeah,
for sure.
Completely agree.
So it was this accident that started the avalanche of the pills. Okay, so before that, I was on Effexor, and I started that at the same time I started Percocet. I was not depressed whatsoever. I was doing very well in my life with my family, my children, my career, but I had these hormonal migraines, and they did not know they were hormonal at the time, and so they put me on Effexor for migraines. Well, then my car accident happened, and they think, oh, my goodness, she's going to be struggling with depression. She just about lost her life. She's going through all these surgeries. It's trauma. We better leave her on the medication. So that led into 18 years of antidepressant also without any stopping. Then, yeah. and you go home from the hospital in the very beginning with your Percocet for breakthrough pain. And then I had Dilaudid because it was stronger for post-op pain. And the problem was that morphine did nothing for me in the hospital. All of us are different, You'll never find any other person on this planet that has the same exact body and system as yourself. So what works for somebody else for pain may not necessarily work for me. And the only thing that really works for me, Dilaudid right into the IV. So once I started figuring out what worked for my pain, surgery after surgery, I was very vocal about it. And I was very outspoken, and my doctors and all of those on the floor knew exactly what would work. And they send you home with the short-term meds, but then the problem is that you're popping pills every 4 hours. And you're not taking care of your pain. There's absolutely no way when you are going through that type of a trauma that you can control pain without having a long-acting opiate if you have no other pain alternatives. So therefore, they start adding on something like an OxyContin, or they add on methadone. Now, see, they put me on OxyContin, and I was on that for 18 months. I didn't know anything about drugs. I didn't know anything about addiction. And I started seeing in 06, actually it was 07, I started seeing these people that were getting addicted to this pain medication. And guess what? I was on the same exact thing. And I was that good girl that grew up. I didn't drink. I didn't party. I didn't do drugs. I did my studies. I was in dance, theater, sport, every sport you can imagine. So I was very, very active. I followed all of society's rules. Really, there's these so-called rules that, you follow rules, A through Z, then you're going to have the over here, the quote unquote American dream. Okay. And that's what I did. I followed the rules and I still got screwed. And what happens is that we don't know. We don't know any other way. We do what we are taught. We do what we are told. And my family was actually a family that did look to more holistic healing, and I still ended up on almost 18 years of opiates and 10 other years of various pharmaceuticals. And you have to be your biggest advocate. You have to know that nobody else is going to look out for you as well as you can yourself. Nobody knows your body as well as you do. So you have to find your voice if you want to have any power at all.
And have authority over your body. That's what I find, is that the doctors try and take that from you, right? That system just takes your ability to speak on behalf of your body, right?
I think a lot of that comes from the power and the prestige that we have given that career and that profession. We have given them the feeling that they are the all-knowing. A lot of them have what we understand as the God complex. And I think as long as we don't challenge that, that encourages that to grow. And by us challenging them and questioning them and showing them, look, guess what? I'm paying you. Yeah, my insurance might be paying you, but that is still insurance is coming out of my paycheck. I'm working hard for it. I'm on disability right now. So if I go to a doctor, it's paid by disability, but all those years that I worked paid into that disability. I'm still paying their paycheck. And if they don't give me the care that I deserve and that I need, I damn well have the right to walk out of that door and go find somebody else. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Yep.
Doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
And in terms of insurance, was that a nightmare for you too, on top of it all? Or was that a system that you were able to navigate quite easily? Or not really?
When I was going through all my medications, at that point, my car accident injured me so terribly and left me disabled that the hospital that I had all of my surgeries at, one of the social workers actually filed paperwork for disability for me. I'd never even heard of that before. Yeah, it was amazing. I didn't even know that I had applied for disability. It was my family had worked with the social worker and got everything together. So therefore, since I was on disability, I was using Medicare and some of the state insurance. And I was very blessed that I had good coverage and most of my stuff was covered. Now, that's the flip coin.
Yeah.
You go to be a cannabis patient and all of a sudden you got to start paying for everything out of your pocket.
Exactly. And so there's no coverage there, in terms of an insurance sense for cannabis then? It's not even on the books there then? Is that fair to say? Or?
No, because insurance is federal program and cannabis is still Schedule I federally illegal. As long as it is still Schedule I, then we won't see insurances covering for it. Now, there have been some rulings where the government has been challenged. I have heard of, there was a state up north, and I can't remember if it was Vermont. One of the states up north had challenged an employment comp, where he wanted to use cannabis from a job injury instead of using opiates. So there are people that are challenging it, and they're trying, and they're going to keep trying. But right now, no, we have no insurance coverage. So everything has to come out of your own pocket. When I purchase all of my meds at a legal dispensary, and I don't make anything at home on my own, I buy everything all done, I spend at least $1,500 a month on cannabis alone.
Wow.
And so you say a legal dispensary. What does that mean? So explain your state and kind of the program in regards to medical cannabis there.
Well, hang on. Can we go to our commercial break and you can answer that when we get back?
Sure, go ahead.
I don't think that's going to turn into a 30-second conversation.
No, gosh.
No.
No. Now, from just a quick question, you're dealing with you have something to do with stigmatization, stigmatism, correct? Right, switch to stigmatism, right? Okay. When we go into our commercials, we usually play some music as we go into the commercial and come out of the commercial. What I'm doing today is I've got somebody talking about cannabis and stigmatization.
Oh, nice.
All right. So that's what the listeners hear when we go on break.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. And then after that, after the commercial, Alicia and I will continue our conversation with Amy Mellen. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here on lifestyleradio.net. Yeah. Okay. We're on break.
Unfortunately, for people using cannabis for therapeutic purposes, you have to deal with all of society's stereotypes around marijuana and its use. And unfortunately, a lot of that gets put on you. And the stigma of using medical cannabis, whether people don't believe that you're using it for health benefits, or if people believe that it's going to turn you into a couch potato, some of those things are things you can chuckle about, and you can sort of fight through those stereotypes. I think, it puts an extra burden on us as medical cannabis patients to prove to people.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reef Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarawana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca. Hi, this is Al Graham of the Pace Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis,
so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the Pace Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here on lifestyleradio.ca.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Cannabis, your friendly neighborhood Campbellford head shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Let us help you grow your 4 with weekly Tuesday night gardening sessions for beginners. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Cannabis, more than just a head shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
But unfortunately, the discrimination that patients feel isn't anything to chuckle about. If you use this medication, you have to fight with your local government, your state government, and your federal government. You also have to worry about losing your children. The issue of medical cannabis use comes up in divorce courts often. Children can be taken away from parents simply because they're using marijuana, whether it's medical or not. And people can lose their lease of their homes.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Please hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Hello and welcome back. You're listening to the award-winning Pace Radio Show, and we are live here at lifestyleradio.net, and you can also catch us live over at Spreaker, Shoutcast, TuneIn Radio, and other locations. Just so you know, we have a new show here at Lifestyle Radio. Just started today, 3 o'clock today. Just started today. It's fresh. It's called The Higher Estate, live with Dr. Ira Price, and it features, like I said, Dr. Ira Price and our very own Al Rapp, who is just thrilled for this opportunity. He's just, I know, I've been talking to him. He is excited about this. And it's all done live, just like we are here. And it will broadcast every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And if you miss it, you can also find it at the Lifestyle Radio website, found at lifestyleradio.net. Today on the program, we are joined by our guest, Amy Mellen of Squash the Stigma. It has a Facebook page, and my joint host, Alicia Yashishin. Well, Amy and Alicia, just before we were going for break, I jumped in there and cut you off. Alicia, did you want to repeat the question to Amy?
Yeah, I was wondering, you had mentioned that you go to a legal dispensary, and so I'm just kind of wondering the particulars around what that means in your home state, or your state where you live, I guess.
Yeah, I'm actually a patient from, by the way, thanks again for having me on. I'm a patient from Oregon, actually, and I moved to Maryland 2 years ago, and now I have my card here in Maryland.
And, so that's another state then. Oh, it's silly Canadian.
think of those states as provinces. They have 52 provinces.
Think of them as provinces. There you go. That's the way to do it. You got it, baby. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm in Maryland. So I'm in Maryland now. That's where I'm at. I'm about 40 minutes from DC. And so we do have, they fought for a program here in Maryland for over 4 years before it went live. So by the time that they had access to cannabis, these people were itching and ready. And the commission here in Maryland originally approved 102 dispensaries. And you know what? I can't even tell you how many we have right now because they keep opening so quickly.
That is statewide.
Like that's encouraged?
How big is Maryland?
You know what? I wish I could tell you. I'm a newbie to Maryland within 2 years, so I'm still learning so much about the state. But it's very different because we're just medical here, and we're back in Oregon where I came from, where we started as medical, went to rec. And so it's very different. But right now, in fact, that's why you guys couldn't get a hold of me earlier, is I was like, damn, I'm bone dry. I better hurry up and get my buns down to the dispensary before I got to get on the air tonight. So I took my buns down to my local dispensary.
And feel free to medicate anytime during the program. That we allow for that.
I already was. I didn't know I needed permission. No, tonight I ended up my local dispensary, Chesapeake Apothecary, that's closest to me. We've got a few of them down here in Southern Maryland. That's the one that I visited tonight. They had some great deals on CBD flowers, so I picked me up something called Lovelace by Colta, and I absolutely love that high CBD strain. We have a hurricane moving in to Florida right now, and it's that barometric pressure change is affecting a lot of us with our pain levels, and we're going on about a 72-hour run right now with high pain levels, and was really glad to see that they put a special on the high CBD, which helps hits you more in the body and helps really well with that inflammation. So I got me some of that. And then I also picked up something called Captain's Cake. And it's the first time I've tried it. And it's working well for me so far. I'm very, very terpene sensitive. And terpenes are the essential oils that are found in plants. And cannabis has terpenes just like other plants do. For example, the terpene from lavender that gives it that very calming effect is called linalool. And everybody's body reacts differently to these terpenes. Think of how do you react when you smell a flower, or when when a man or a woman walks by and has that cologne or perfume that just makes you, drop to your knees. Or there's a certain candle, you walk into a room and somebody's got a candle or air freshener going. You are reacting to certain terpenes. And our bodies react to these terpenes in relation to health also. All those medications that I was on, go ahead.
Is it like aromatherapy then, but just using the products like within the plants, right? Like naturally occurring. That's awesome. Like the cannabinoids, I guess, right? Or like your terpene profiles. You're going to it's what gives the plants the taste and the aroma. And so, for example, I have ticks that I'm left with from the big pharma. The one that made me black out in 2014 called gabapentin, that is a generic name for a nerve medication called Neurontin. There's another medication in that same field called Lyrica, and they are non-opiate pain medications that are used quite often for folks that have neuropathy and those that are not responding to opiates, or doctors will often prescribe them in combination with opiates, and that's very scary because that's actually what I believe what caused me to black out was the combination of all of this stuff. Do you think those pills are just as addictive as opiates, though, too, and they just don't tell people that?
I believe that this class of drugs is, yes. And that is because of what I have experienced with these medications. It's what other patients have experienced. Even my husband himself has been on the same medication and got himself off of the medication, weaned himself down very slowly under doctor supervision. Then he had a pain flare-up, decided to take some of the medication. I did not know. He asked me, he said, is there a chance of this making me feel like I'm intoxicated? And I said, yes, that is actually a very common side effect for folks. How much did you ingest? And he told me, and I said, you are not going anywhere today. You are not getting behind a wheel. You are doing nothing but staying right here in this bedroom. And folks don't realize really what can happen when you even reintroduce medications that you have gotten yourself off of. You can actually put yourself back into something called kindling, and that can happen with opiates. It can happen with the Neurontin type medications. It can happen with benzodiazepines. There's all these things that I learned all the stuff that I learned after I came off the meds.
And what does that mean? Like kindling though, like what does that mean? Like if you take it again after you've been off it, like what happens?
When you go off of a medication, a type of medication or a substance, for example, benzodiazepines or opiates, those types of medications work on the addictive part of your brain. And when you've been off of them for a certain period of time, your body, as soon as you start, taking them out of the system, your brain starts to try to heal. And it takes time. You've given your brain a crutch, whether that crutch has been for anxiety, for a benzodiazepine, or whether that crutch has been an opiate to help numb your nerves, whatever it is, you have put in a replacement that your brain now does not have, and it has to figure out how to fire on its own. And it takes time for our brains to heal. And then if you reintroduce a substance, an illicit drug, or you reintroduce some of these medications, many people can have various different types of effects. And some folks, it will put them right back into like a withdrawal effect. Some folks, it can do like what it did with my husband, where it can make them feel very loopy and very uncomfortable, very out of it, can send their anxieties. So I always suggest to folks, before they go off of medications, first of all, do it under a doctor's supervision. Have a plan. Do it smart and do it slow. And then once you are off for a certain period of time, if you are considering either reintroducing that medication on an as-needed basis, or whether you are considering going back on that medication full-time, you need to discuss that with your doctor, and you need to ask if there are any effects of reintroducing that medication. And a lot of folks never think of that, and I didn't either. And I found out about these things because I got into groups on Facebook after I was coming off my meds. I was having difficulties I didn't know what withdrawals were from what. I was experiencing all these weird things happening, and I didn't understand what was going on. And plus, you just start to get your depression gets out of control, your anxiety goes through the roof, and you need some freaking validation from somebody that has walked that path. You need to hear from somebody that's going to tell you it's going to be okay and you're going to make it through this. So that's what I turned to the groups for. And that's when I started learning by sitting back and watching all these conversations and reading what other people have lived through.
That's awesome.
And
when I went through my withdrawals, I did it myself, because I was embarrassed. You know what I mean? And I didn't tell it anyone. I didn't even tell my doctor. I just did it cold turkey because I was so embarrassed that I was a drug addict.
Oh, goodness. Right? And see, that's some of those stigmas out there, right?
Yeah.
So
when you
they're brutal.
go off slowly, that really resonated for me because I just wanted the pills gone. So I did it cold turkey, but I suffered for 30 days upwards because of those pills. So had I did it slowly, I probably wouldn't have suffered so much. But my saving grace is cannabis, right? So, and so when you... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was going to say, when you recommend to people that you work with, like a detoxification plan, what do you suggest people do besides what you've already kind of explained in terms of having a plan with the doctor and stuff? Is there things that folks can do at home to kind of help that process, to kind of take the authority over that process?
Actually, yes, definitely. I did a live feed on this on my Facebook page today because I was getting on there and letting folks know I was going to be on the show tonight. So I just kind of ended up jabbering into, how detox was for me. And what I found very, very helpful was I actually was doing a pain journal before I started titrating off my meds. And that was because I, hadn't been around substances. I hadn't been around medications, around any illicit drugs. So I was quite frankly scared of overdosing and having my kids come find me. When you are in a lot of pain, it clouds your judgment. And
it does.
it really, and it fools with your space and time continuum, right?
Oh, for sure.
So there's going to be times when you are in so much pain that you have taken your pills and you don't remember. Because it hasn't kicked in yet. It takes a good half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour for most people to have that filter through their system and process through their liver. Well, you're still in some major excruciating pain, and it's still 30 minutes later, and you very well could have forgotten that you took your pill, and therefore you have just overdone yourself. And I didn't want to do that. So I started keeping a journal, and my pain that I have is CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome, neuropathy. I have fibromyalgia. I have my tics that I deal with, a facial tic, a shoulder tic, an eye tic. I have pins throughout my hand. My hand and my arm has numb spots on it. The pain that I get is like when your foot has fallen asleep and you go to stand up and you get those pins and needles. That is neuropathy. That is the nerves have fallen asleep and now they're coming back alive. Well, guess what? When you start going off of your meds, your pain is going to rebound and you're going to end up having worse pain in the beginning. And so what I suggest to folks before they even start to cut down on a medication is take stock of where you are right now. What is your current situation? And start journaling. Write down all the medications that you're taking. Every time you take a pill, write it down. And what are you taking it for? Is it your pain medication? Okay. What type of pain are you experiencing? Is it a neuropathy pain? Is it an itching, a burning, a pins and needles? Is it a muscle pain? Is it a spasm? How long did it last? What pain level were you at from a 0 to 10? Were there any external factors? Pain is not brought on and we don't control it just by what we ingest or what we put in our bodies or what is going on in our bodies. Our pain is also affected by external forces. So take a look at your weather. Right now, we got this hurricane moving into Florida, and a lot of us on the East Coast are dealing with a ton of body pain right now, going on about a 72-hour cycle. And so barometric pressures are huge with my pain. I can tell a storm coming 3 days ahead of time typically. And I started hurting 3 days ago in my hips. Then it goes to my hand. And I said to my husband, I can tell there's a storm coming. Sure enough, everybody else starts talking about how their pain is off the charts no matter what they're doing. I had my husband pull up the barometric pressure app tonight. It's dropping like a rock. So take a look at your weather. Take a look at your job situation. Has anything changed? What's the stress like at work? What's your stress like at home? Have you been doing any extra physical activity? Are you using your body in a different way than you do typically? This is how folks will start to learn to be mindful. You have to start listening to your body, but it's not an easy process, and it's something that you learn over time.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Number one, what's your status quo? Where are you at right now? Start journaling where you're at. Do this for, I suggest to folks a good 3 months before they decide to start cutting any meds. Start talking to your doctor, do it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Start doing your research, reading about what the withdrawals are going to be for certain medications. Getting in and finding those Facebook groups. Now, let me tell you, be very cautious with these groups also. You have to remember that all of these folks are sick. They are ill. They are in active detox typically, and so they are at their wit's end. Many are desperate. Many are alone, and many are very, very scared, and some are suicidal. So I want folks to sit back. You can go in and introduce yourself. Thank you for the ad, but don't post anything right away. Just sit back and be a fly on the wall. Learn, soak it up. But remember to take everything with a grain of salt. And please remember that their journey is not your journey. Your body is not their body. And all you're looking for is as much information as you can in front of you, and what are the commonalities. Try not to look at what the extremes are and those folks that are talking about all of the bad stuff, okay? Try to look at the whole picture. And what are the commonalities in all of these patients that have been talking about this certain medication that you're coming off of? And you're going to start putting pieces together, and you're going to start seeing the picture come together. And you'll see this in every single group that you're in. Take notes. Then when you feel comfortable enough and you feel like you've got enough information under your belt, then put a post up. You can let them know as much as you want. You know, this is your journey. You be as open as you want to. Remember, typically these groups are closed groups, but some of them are open public ones. And remember, we are talking social media, and you are talking your personal journey. So whatever you put out there, you are going to be criticized for, most likely. And it happens in these groups too. You know, that's just the way social media goes. So that addresses the groups. Talk to your doctor ahead of time. When you're ready to start it, then make sure that you have a plan with your doctor. Now, what I find very hard to believe is why more doctors are not willing to go about the backdoor method, I would say, like what my doctor did. My doctors that helped me get off of my medication are at Oregon Health Science Universities in the state of Oregon. It is a federally funded teaching hospital. And yet, all through my records, it talks about cannabis. It talks about the endocannabinoid system. We talk about cannabinoids. We talk about CBD oil. It's all in my records, okay?
And
what was so...
And federal funded hospital.
Yes, it's a federally funded teaching hospital. And what my doctor did that was so different than other ones is, now I used to detox about 2 to 3 times every year because my pain is better with the warmer months. And I never wanted to be on the OxyContin or the methadone. And when I got scared, I was telling you guys I was scared about people getting addicted to OxyContin. They switched me to methadone. I didn't know anything about methadone. My first question was, isn't that for heroin addicts? And they said, oh, yes, but we also use it for chronic pain. So then I was a synthetic heroin addict pretty much for 18 months, falling asleep in my food in front of my children.
Yeah, and, you know, a lot of people don't realize that. They just think they're taking an opiate or whatever, or an OxyContin. They don't realize it's synthetic heroin.
And let me tell you, that stuff was strong. Holy smackers.
Could you imagine telling a patient like yourself who's never taken them, oh, here's some synthetic heroin for you to take?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my
gosh.
gosh.
I trusted, though. But I trusted. I trusted.
Yeah.
And no different than all these other people that it happens to, you know? So I had started that whole detox a few times a year. So my doctor and I had already started my journaling. We'd already started having a really good rapport through my MyChart, meaning the online system that we could communicate with each other when I was having a real hard time or I needed to get in and see her quickly. So we had created that rapport with each other. Then and she knew I was always looking for something better. I would come up with new topicals or an herbal thing I'd read about and I'd bring it to her, or some other new hand therapy or some new gizmo. We were always looking at what other alternatives were there besides using the opiates for the pain control. So when I came to her about cannabis, she surely was not surprised because I just found me another alternative. But what she did was she did not test me for THC every month. You have to go in and get your pills refilled every month on a 30-day basis. In order to do that, the pain clinics, and you're under a pain contract, you have to be piss tested, which means that they want to piss test you for THC. Yeah. Yeah. You guys don't have to do that up there?
I don't have to pee in a bottle to get my cannabis, no.
No.
Or
my
opiate.
But now, with that said, With that said, though, there are clinics here that, yes, you are required to pee in a bottle. Yes, depends on the clinic you go to. But like my doctor, because I deal with my specialist, he doesn't require me to pee in a bottle. No, that's up to the doctor.
They don't do that.
Yes,
I've never heard of that here. Like having
wow,
to pee for
really?
your opiates, but maybe it's changed. But our regulations by the College of Physicians and Surgeons are pretty embarrassing when it comes to the regulations of opiates. So I'm not surprised that we would. Maybe they do now. I'd have to check the legislation, but this is a new thing with these paying contracts. That's interesting. And having to pay, have a pee test in order to get your opiates. Is that what the function of this pee test process is?
Yes, and it's pretty much standard. It's pretty much standard procedure over here. For example, my husband has a bulging disc at L3 and 4. He was a bodybuilder years ago and blew out his back, and so he was at a pain clinic this last year speaking to them about what his options were. He'd already done injections, and they told him, well, we've got this opiate, or you can take methadone. And he said, oh, hell no to the methadone. My wife did that. I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole. And, so I explained to that. He said, I'm going to wait. I'm going to research. I'm going to look at my options and I'll get back to you. And I explained to him when we left there, he said, I can't believe this. He goes, this is my only option is the pills. And I said, so here I am having the same exact discussion with my husband that I've had with all these other patients about what little options he really has. And I explained to him that if he does choose, if he would have chosen to do the opiates at that point in time, he would have to sign a contract. Every time he goes in to get his refill, he will have to give a urine test. And if for some reason, let's say he accidentally ate something of mine, because he can't ingest cannabis, THC, because of his job. But let's say if for some odd reason he accidentally got a hold of one of my edibles or something like that, and it wasn't on purpose for him to ingest it, and he popped, and he popped hot, he'd be screwed. They literally, if this happens, you can literally get a red mark in your file that will not let you get a prescription anywhere in the U.S.
Really?
This is something I learned about 3 months ago. And my husband's doctor is in Virginia, and Virginia is just scary to me to get at when it comes to cannabis. But in the state of Virginia. But this is from what I'm reading and from what I'm understanding and from talking to the pharmacists also. Any doctor that you go see, if for some reason they think that you are drug seeking in any way, shape, or form, can go into a file, or a pharmacist can, and put a red mark in your file, and you're going to have an issue getting opiates anywhere you go to try. And what's really scary to me is a lot of doctors don't have the knowledge about detox. A lot of doctors don't understand withdrawals. So let's say we have somebody that walks into a clinic, their doctor's not on, they're not on staff that day, but someone else is there and is willing to see them. And they don't know this person's background. They don't take the time to read what's going on, and they judge them by appearance only. They're shaking, they're sweating, their anxiety's through the roof, they're pale, they're nauseated. These are all symptoms of a person going through detox, but they take them as a drug seeker. This doctor doesn't know this patient well. They're just on staff helping out. But if that doctor wanted to take it upon themselves, they could actually put a red flag in there.
And that
to me,
patient,
So at the end of the day, though, for people who were legitimately drug seeking, as I was when I was like a total drug addict because of those pills, because I believe they made me have those behaviors because I was addicted to them because of the chemicals in those pills. But if someone would have put a red flag on my file at the pharmacy or at the doctor's office, maybe that would have stopped me. But there's no process in our system that really stops people. They in Saskatchewan, they'll send a letter to doctors if you're double doctoring, saying, hey, this patient is double doctoring. But there's no system that can block someone from accessing opiates like that here.
Nope.
Wow. Typically, it's the pharmacist on this end that usually picks up on the doctor shopping, because they'll see prescriptions coming into the pharmacy from all different areas. And usually they're the ones that will catch on to it, and they'll notify the doctors and red flag it.
Hey, I got to jump in here. We were just talking about peeing. I see we're late for break.
Oh.
Okay, we'll continue this conversation when we get back from break. All right, and some more. I got some questions. I see this information on about you here, Amy. I want to get in some of those questions on what you've done in the past, as well as your Squish the Stigma Facebook page.
Sure.
All righty. Okay, all right. Tonight, as we're going in and out of the bumpers, you're hearing some stuff about cannabis and stigmatization, and then after the break, we'll continue our conversation with our guest, Amy Mellen. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Yeah, I hear it there.
If they're in Section 8 housing, they can be kicked out for life for
All
using their
right.
medicine in those homes. And so the day-to-day life of a medical cannabis patient means that they're, on one hand, struggling with their illness and the treatments for their illness. And that stigma and discrimination plays into the fact that here we have a substance that is known to be one of the least harmful substances. And this information is from scientists and doctors who know that cannabis is not a harmful substance.
I hate silence, so that's what's so funny.
Enjoy
about
the
it.
buzz of legalization with Cannabis, your friendly neighborhood Campbellford head shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Let us help you grow your fork with weekly Tuesday night gardening sessions for beginners. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Cannabis, more than just a head shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
I'll just go in there.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing? Not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reef Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours with cannabis public education.
To help him.
We get things started with cannabis and coffee with marijuana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca.
Why does that happen? Is it just like the lungs get...
This is Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. Catch me on The Reefer Reporters, aired on lifestyleradio.net. Available for replay or download on Lifestyle Radio or Spreaker.
Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on lifestyleradio.net. Listen in until midnight every weekend as he spins your favorite reggae tunes, including the classics, from Butterfly's Passion, Bed and Breakfast Above Discovery Bay. DJ Passion makes you feel like you are on the island. Head to the land of sun, fun, and ganja weekly when you tune in Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to Reggae Saturday with DJ Passion, live here on lifestyleradio.net.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today, 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
And because of the stigma around this plant, scientists aren't even able to do the research that they'd like to do. Doctors aren't able to get the education that they'd like to get. And this means as a patient, when you're in a situation where there aren't other treatment options or other treatment options are failing you, that you're going to find yourself going through all sorts of hurdles to be able to use this medication. And for many of us, we don't have a choice.
Hey, we're back. Thanks for tuning into the program. We are being broadcasted live, as always, here at lifestyleradio.net. But if you can't catch the live show, you can always catch the podcast afterwards, Mixcloud, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Yeah, it's out there. So you can always find the podcast that way. Tonight, our bumpers featured was about the stigma of cannabis, and it was something that I found online. I'm not sure actually who put it out, but it's available out there. Just do a search for stigma in cannabis, and it will show up. Today on the program, we are joined by our guest, Amy Mellen, and my joint host, Alicia Yashishin. Amy,
Yes.
I got a question for you on the stigma stuff. I see you've got a Facebook page, and I mentioned it before the commercial break. Squish the Stigma. I'm a person too that has an issue. Having derogatory terms and ways it's looked at negative in society. I don't appreciate that either, because other things in society that maybe should have some don't, but don't seem to be. But what is there something that you're doing as far as your advocacy work that you're going out and dealing with stigmatism?
Actually, yeah, I came up with the Facebook group Squash the Stigma after I had moved over here to Maryland a couple of years ago. And me being a newbie with cannabis back in 2014, I was your good girl. I didn't party growing up, didn't get drunk for the first time until I was 41 years old. And so I was, the straight-laced one, followed all the rules, and still ended up on over 40 pills a day. And so when I decided to look at cannabis, that was a major overhaul of my thought process, because I had grown up in the DARE era. The whole, there's
just say no
good that can come. Yeah, just say no. No good can come of cannabis. If you smoke weed, you're going to be a lazy ass on the couch eating pizza, doing nothing with your life, kind of a thing. No pot, no rock and roll. That's what I grew up with. Ooh. So I know.
Oh, that rock and roll music. Woo.
But I bet you it was like go Tylenol, go, you know what I mean? Go pharmaceuticals, and that like their age.
Yep. Yep, and now I listen to heavy metal and smoke weed every day. So obviously I changed something around. But it's that whole mindset, and not just me, but my family had to change their mindset around too. And what really frustrated me is it's just a damn plant. And what really made me mad when I learned the truth about reefer madness and about big pharma and about Purdue and OxyContin. And I mean, if you look back at our things really changed around the Industrial Revolution. Once we start getting the ability to have machines to do things for us, we're not using our minds as more, we're not using our bodies as more, things like that. We're a society of convenience. We want it now, and we want to feel better now. Give me a pill, make it better, hurry up.
Yeah, everything's fixable with a pill.
That's where we've gotten ourselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's where we ended up. And I think that the younger generations behind us are learning from us. My kids are 20 and 21. They look at medications and pharmaceuticals very differently. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with my experiences. But
thank God,
even Oh, I know.
They look at them differently, Yeah.
Actually, my oldest daughter is a cannabis success story too. She was on mental health meds from the age of 7 years old. She'd been on a Zoloft at the age of 7. My accident happened a year later, and the whole time I'm in my pharma fog, they're switching my kid back and forth from one bed to the next to the next. 11 years later. Oh, yeah. Total mess. So she sees me 11 years later. She's still on mental health meds. I get off of my meds, including the antidepressant. I'm left with one, Wellbutrin, and the benzodiazepines. And she says, "Mom, can I please?" At the age of 18, she comes to me and she says, "I've seen what cannabis has done for you. Can I please try it?" I do admit I have smoked a few times with my friends, and it really helps me a lot. She has very, very bad social anxiety that she got from hereditary. And so I laid down the ground rules. We're back in Oregon, and she could only, get it from me, consume with me, this and that. And my daughter actually discontinued her Wellbutrin and also dropped 100 pounds in a year. So,
awesome.
Cannabis. Yeah.
Kudos to her.
So,
that's really good,
Yeah, that's great. She got to see the success of it for you in order to, yeah.
So, if we pass down this information and we educate, our children, believe it or whether it's our children or anybody else, I will share Doc Uma is a wonderful gal, and she has a quote that she has where you teach one, you reach 10. For every person that you teach something to about cannabis, at least 10 other people are somehow going to pick up a seed from that person. So it doesn't take much to be dropping seeds everywhere here and there. And that's what I do with my kids. Is they watch me, they watch how I've healed myself, they watch how I help coach others, and my kids are actually coaching their friends. And my youngest daughter actually was on Twitter with a guy talking in a conversation probably about 6 months ago, and he had tweeted that he had smoked the night before, and his anxiety was off the charts. And she gets on there and she says, "Oh, honey, you need to be watching your strains. You need to talk to my mama about your terpenes." I died laughing, but my heart was just huge because I'm like, I don't think that she's listening at all. She's like, yeah, my mom's making her pot candy again tonight. She's on Snapchat with her friends, but she's actually listening, obviously.
Yeah. So tell me about your pot candies and the whole CBD thing. Is it a big craze there as it is in Canada?
Well, I am known on social media. My tagline is One Beautiful Hot Mess. And my kids came up with that name pretty much because while I was on the meds, my lymphatic system was all screwed up, so I was sweaty all the time. Then when you're detoxing, you go the opposite direction, but you're still sweaty all the time. And then I would forget things constantly because my brain just is not like it was. So they started saying, everywhere I'd go, they'd be like, oh, Mom, you're such a hot mess. Well, my husband, when he comes home from work, the first thing he says when he walks in the door is, hey, how's it going, beautiful? So I put the two together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started sharing my journey openly just so people could start learning because there was so much that I wasn't told. There was so much I didn't know about cannabis. There was nobody to go to tell me how to figure out what oils to use, how to titrate certain things. Did I need to have a carrier oil? Was oil better to ingest? Should I be using a topical? And so that's how I started sharing my journey, was just very openly on social media. I moved to Maryland 2 years ago, and we didn't have dispensaries yet. And all I knew was we had a program. That's all I knew when we moved here. Well, I had to all of a sudden figure out how I was going to medicate. And, excuse me, back in Oregon, there's a company called Lunchbox Alchemy. And they're a great medibles company, concentrates company, and I had used their products, their hard candy called Shrapnel, to help me get off of, while I was detoxing, off of my meds. And it really, really helped get me through the withdrawals. And I thought, I got to make my own candy. This is what I need to do. So I started with just a very simple recipe and with my own oil that I had learned to make while I was back in Oregon. I made it here, and I started making my own candy. Now, this was my own candy with THC and CBD strictly for my own consumption, okay? This was my own personal meds. Well, then I had other people asking about it. Well, heck no, was I going to be giving anybody else THC? That's not cool. I don't cross the legal boundaries there. This girl stays within, she colors within the lines. So I started thinking, how could I make a candy for other folks that didn't have THC in it, that could help them with their conditions? So I started looking at CBD isolate. And so that's what I started sourcing out, was hemp CBD isolate. Now I make a candy that is fully organic and vegan called Hot Mess Suckies. And it's a hard candy that you can suck on, and you're going to be absorbing the CBD sublingually. So typically, I actually have patients that have experienced relief for their anxiety and their pain in as little as 7 minutes. What's really nice about when you have something sublingually like that, excuse me, is you're going to feel something pretty quick. But then eventually, because it's going through your mouth and you are ingesting it, you're going to have it go through your liver, and it's going to process through there too within a half an hour, within 60 to 90 minutes. So you're going to get a second kick for the rest of your body. So it's like it's a twofold. Yeah, you get a benefit twofold, both ways.
Now that's medicine.
So I thought, yeah, so that's what I started doing, was I started fooling around with this candy recipe that I had. And hard candy is hard to make in general, even before adding any meds into it. It's very, very temperamental to make. You have to get it to a certain temperature to cure the sugar, but you have to be very careful not to go too high or you're going to burn it. Yes. And so I started doing this, and I was figuring it out for myself. And then I was like, wow, I'm sure eating a lot of candy. I'm eating a lot of sugar, and sugar causes inflammation, and inflammation makes my pain worse. So I don't want to be, and plus I was using Jell-O, so it had lots of dyes and preservatives in it. And I had somebody asking me if I had thought about doing or turning my candy vegan. And I said, maybe I'll look into that. So I start looking into more healthy alternatives. So I switched all my ingredients over for myself to all organic and vegan. Then I sourced out the hemp. So then I was able to start making an organic and vegan candy that's made strictly out of hemp CBD without the THC. So patients are able to address their sleep, their anxiety, their GI issues, and their pain with just a straight CBD isolate candy. And it's taken off like gangbusters. I am literally shocked. I've got about 20 different organic gourmet flavors. I'm coming out with my fall ones now, which is pumpkin spice, apple pie, chai vanilla latte, and hot cocoa. I'm working on my website, and I'm working on bringing them to market. So I've got patients, customers all over the place that are utilizing them now for pain. And I'm just tickled to death every time someone sends me a message and says, "You won't believe this, but my full-blown anxiety was under control in 7 minutes," or my Meniere's disease, cool. My pain was relaxed enough I could lay down and take a nap, and you have no idea what that means to me. Or I actually slept for 4 hours in a row.
That's awesome. A big one for a lot of patients, getting sleep.
Yeah. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting to see what we can do with all of these different methods of ingestion with cannabis. And that's the thing is, it's no longer grandma's cannabis. It's no longer the Woodstock hippie days of cannabis. We're no longer talking about people just walking around with doobies anymore, are we?
No.
It's sophisticated. No. It's like a really sophisticated industry, and it's becoming more and more that way. That's awesome. And so in terms of your personal ingestion, like how do you or how did you like cure yourself, and did you use a variety of methods, or was there one specific that you kind of used? Or
the first thing that I did was I started smoking, and I forgot you had asked me what my first experience was. And when my husband had taken me out on that back road, he loaded the bowl, and I smoked it, and we drove back home, and he says, "You're not feeling anything, are you?" And I said, "Honey, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. I don't." And he goes, "Come on over here to the window." And he loads it up again for me, and he hands me the pipe. He says, "Okay, smoke it." So I light it up and I smoke it, and he starts laughing hysterically at me. And I said, "What now?" And he goes, "Oh, baby." He goes, "You forgot to plug the carb hole. You just burnt it all up. No wonder you didn't get anything."
Oh.
So, we all have our newbie moments. So that's what I first started doing, was smoking.
Your first educational moment?
That was my first educational moment, yes. Thankfully, my husband had lit up as a youngster, so he at least knew how to teach me that. What happened was after I had started smoking the bud, we went to a friend of his that had opened a dispensary his family had in Oregon, in Portland, called One Draw 2. And he had spoke to him about my pain. And he said, "You know what?" Because it was legal rec, so we could walk in and talk to them and try different products. And so we tried a topical. And it did have THC in it also. And I had been using another topical for years that was made of other essential oils. But man, adding the cannabis to it was amazing, because I put that topical on my hand with neuropathy, and in less than 2 minutes, I could feel my hand warming up. And in less than 10 minutes, I had, 2 minutes. And in 10 minutes, I had pain relief. 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
See, I guess all the way the product is developed, like I haven't really found any kind of topical creams that I could like say that I really, swore by, but perhaps that's just like a personal thing. But cool.
Well, it took me 12 topicals. I will tell you that. Remember, we're all different. We all have different pains, and we all have different thicknesses of skin and that sort of thing. So we have to keep trying different things. It took me about a dozen before I found one eventually, that one that I used in the beginning, they actually weren't on the market very long. So I had to keep trying different ones. And the one that I've been using for about 3 years now, is called Kush Creams. And it's from Megan Schwarting, and it's a great company out of Gig Harbor, Washington. It's strictly hemp CBD in an emu oil base with essential oils added to it. And she's got many different formulas. It's absolutely amazing. I'm very blessed that they sponsor me. They're my only sponsor that I have right now. So we've actually given away probably, I don't know, about 200 tubs together of Kush Creams. And they're great about sponsoring activities for me and stuff like that. But if topical is one thing that I think anybody who has pain should be looking at. I don't care what topical it is that you find. Keep trying them. Keep looking for one. And always put it where it hurts. So let's say you have knee pain. You apply it directly to your knee. But then I also want you to make sure that you apply it to the soles of your feet if you can, if you're in an area or you're able to at that moment in time. We absorb oils in the soles of our feet in as quick as 30 seconds. So if you apply it to the soles of your feet plus the area that it hurts, you're going to be getting a dual area where you can go ahead and tackle the pain from. I notice a big difference when I do it myself, and so does my husband.
Yeah, the bottom of your feet is very big on the nerves. Like this, yeah, lots there.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's another spot to take advantage. Now, if you want to go a step further than that, then you can also put it on the sink of essential oils. The places where folks apply their essential oils, the inside of your wrists, the back of your knees, the inside of your elbows, the armpits, all those warm, sensitive places, that's where we soak up things very quickly. So you could even put a dab on all of those areas if you wanted to, give a little bit more concentration. But topicals are the least expensive, least evasive way to get pain relief. You can use them anywhere, anytime, apply them, wait 30 minutes. If you don't get the relief you're looking for, apply it again. If you have used a topical for a good month and you're not getting relief from it, or however long that you feel is substantial for you to give it a good try, then try another one. Like I said, everybody's different. Don't give up. That's the thing. I myself use everything. I do every method possible of cannabis consumption. Once I started using the topical, the next thing is we went into the dispensary and said, okay, what's our next step? We want to take this a step further. The topical's working. The smoking is working for pain. What can we do now to help her even more? And they said, well, there's this thick black oil that people call RSO, Rick Simpson oil. I want you to go home. I want you to get online, and I want you to do some research. They didn't try to sell me nothing right away. They sent me out, and this is what a good dispensary will do, is they will help you learn. They will help educate you. Yeah. Any consulting company or any dispensary that does not help give you the power to heal yourself is not out for the patient. They are out for themselves.
Yeah, or the money, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they sent me home to go research. So we started researching this oil. Then I started learning, okay, there's really this other word for this oil called full extract cannabis oil, FECO, or some call it FECO. Same exact, it's pretty much the same thing as Rick Simpson oil, and you'll even hear people argue about this even within the industry. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of it. We're just going to call it full plant oil, okay?
It's FECO in my house. It's FECO in my household.
Yeah, that's what it is in mine.
Yeah. Well, it's fully extracted cannabis oil, right?
That's right. Well, the reason why I try to teach patients that is if you're new to cannabis or you're wanting to share cannabis information with people, they don't know who Rick Simpson is. They won't know what a Rick Simpson oil is. So I think it's much better to call it by really what it is. It's a full extract cannabis oil. That's exactly what it is. It's very simplistic.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and
And
from
I
what
make
I've heard,
mine up.
that's what he prefers to be called when, especially when he's not involved in it. His name's on it, and you make it.
You know what? For folks that do call it RSO, they need to really be rethinking that, because I have been hearing quite a bit of mumbling that he may be thinking about going legality-wise after people that are using the term Rick Simpson oil. I don't know for sure, but that's just something people might want to consider, you know.
Well, it makes sense.
It does make sense, you know.
I didn't even realize. Thanks for that. I appreciate that, because I'm
Yeah.
a offender of RSO.
Well, and we want people to,
yet, right? So thank you.
We want folks to be learning the correct terminologies for things, you know. We want them to be understanding things and what these terms mean. So I actually make my own FECO now. I acquire my bud in the legal dispensary down the street from my house here, and I bring my bud home. I buy my Everclear at the liquor store, which is here in Maryland. It's 189 proof grain alcohol. And so I bring that home. I pour it over my bud. I give it a little pummel gently for about 5 minutes. It's called a quick wash. And then I strain out my plant material, and I'm left with this nice, really it's like a quick tincture is what it is. And I take that quick wash and I put it into an alcohol distiller machine that I have, and it reclaims about 65 to 70% of my alcohol that I'm able to reuse again for my next batches. What I'm left with is this thick black oil. And it still has a little bit of alcohol left in it, so I have to evaporate off the little bit that's left. But once I've got that full extract oil, I can pretty much, you're home free. You can do anything. You can make your medibles. You can make your own topicals. Really, it's endless. And what I do with mine is I mix it with coconut oil. That's the carrier oil that I use myself. You can use coconut oil, olive oil, grapeseed oil, hemp oil, flaxseed. Just depends on what works for that person's body and how they absorb that oil. So folks have to try what's going to work best for them. I mix it with the carrier oil. I also put in liquid lecithin. Lecithin is a good binder. It helps with the absorption. So I have noticed that when I do use lecithin in my capsules, I get a quicker uptake and I get a better absorption. And that's the same thing with carrier oil. Most folks, you will hear them talk about the full extract or RSO in terms of dosing in grains of rice. And that's what Rick Simpson originally had been teaching his folks. On how to start, with that. We've come a long way since Rick Simpson. Even Rick Simpson himself has learned so much since he started sharing all of this knowledge that he learned. And what we have learned is a lot about how the body absorbs and the absorption of cannabis. And oil binds to oil. So for you to have your body absorb that cannabis oil the best way possible, typically you're going to want it mixed with the carrier oil. Now, I have learned even myself through my mentors that there's certain conditions that even patients use different types of carrier oils at different times of the day. And sometimes they will use that carrier oil with their FECO on an empty stomach, and sometimes they will need to take that carrier oil on a stomach that has a meal in it. So it just depends on that person's conditions. Typically, if you take your oil, your full extract cannabis oil without a carrier oil, a lot of it is going to be lost to the stomach acids, and it's going to kind of just sit in there, and typically a lot of it will just be lost in your waste. And it's very sad for me to see folks waste their meds, because I went through that. I had a company that was selling me back in Oregon $800 to $1,000 worth of oil, and it was not the dispensary I was with. It was another separate company. that was selling me oil that much a week I was spending, but not teaching me how to use it until I paid $200 to go to a seminar for the weekend, and then they taught me. So I hate to see people lose money, you know?
Yeah. The alcohol process that you're talking about there, making the fecal oil, the machine that you described, it almost sounds like the GMO, the green oil machine. Because it does something very similar to that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of different alcohol distillers out there, but pretty much any simple alcohol distiller is going to work. They run about 170 to 180 on Amazon. There are companies you can order from over in China as long as you don't mind the slow boat. That'll save you about another $50. And then you have the machine. That's the alcohol distiller. And then the next machine actually that I would like to get is the extract source. And that one is that's a beauty. That is a beauty machine, let me tell you. If you are looking for a top quality machine for at home to make your oil, that's one to definitely take a look at.
That's called the source?
Yep, the extract source.
Extract source.
And you can check them out online. Google them. It'll bring it right up. They have excellent customer service. They have a great support group on Facebook. And you can actually make your own oil to dab, too. I mean, your own concentrates. It's just, it's really, for any chronic patient, a cannabis patient that's going to be using meds on a regular basis, I think it's a very wise investment. And there's also the magical butter machine out there too that some folks use, but it's really, you know, for beginners, it's a great place to start. And
over my shoulder.
There's these, you know, so we've got these different tools out there that do help us. You can also do some things in just a slow cooker. I made myself 5 cups of infused coconut oil this last week, and all I do is a low and slow in my slow cooker with my bud that I've gotten at the dispensary. I bring it home. I put it in my slow cooker, and I put it on there for 18 hours, very low. I turn it off for 16 hours, and I turn it off for 8 hours, do another 16 hours. And then I strain it all when it's done. And then I do this, I have a washing process that I do with my coconut oil also that helps pull more of the chlorophyll and the impurities out so you don't have that hay flavor with it. Yeah. So all of these types of things I have just learned by other folks that I call canna warriors that have been doing it for years, and they have decided, you know, to share their knowledge. Okay. And so that's, you know, what I do.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite the community. Alicia, have you got any more questions for Amy? I'm just looking at the time here.
Yeah. I guess for me, I just am really wondering why the carrier oil with the R or the FICO. Like, why wasn't I told that? I feel like.
You know what? A lot of us aren't told that. Yeah, a lot of us aren't told because really, where do we go to learn this information? There is no handbook for cannabis dummies out there yet. Really what it is there's an overabundance of information, but it's not really organized, so people really don't really know where to look. That's what is spurring what my business partner and I are doing in Maryland right now that I'm really excited for us to unveil is a movement here, an educational program for patients here in Maryland and hoping eventually that we can bring it to other states too. And we have to be able to just share what's working with each other. I didn't know about carrier oils till somebody else shared it with me. That's why I started sharing my journey so publicly. And for those folks that are looking for information, I would suggest Googling cannabis oil and absorption. There are some really good articles out there that will talk about cannabis oil, carrier oils, and absorption. It's all about doing your reading and doing your research. And it's not quick, it's not easy, and it's not fast. But if you're willing to put in the time, then you'll be able to heal yourself. And really, it's in the full plant. It's the full plant oil, I'm telling you. it's the THC combined with the CBD that gives you that entourage effect that goes into your endocannabinoid system and starts healing it to bring down the inflammation, to help start fighting the disease and the health conditions that folks are fighting.
Did you ever think that, you go back to the beginning of the show, you talked about smoking with a pipe. Did you ever think that first experience and feeling the benefits of that would lead to what you've done today, like to what you've accomplished since then? It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. And every time I'm in D.C., it is. Every time I'm up on the Hill, at Capitol Hill in D.C., and I'm lobbying or I'm speaking at a hearing or I'm giving a presentation for an educational event or doing an interview at a dispensary opening, whatever it is, it's a very surreal to me because I never would have thought that even 3 years ago that I would be where I'm at now. And I owe it all to cannabis. Cannabis is what brought me out of my pharma fog. Cannabis is what opened my mind. And I truly believe that there is a type of mind altering that comes over you once you start ingesting full plant oil. Your body just starts to achieve that homeostasis and it starts to heal your brain. And you really develop, you guys can call me hokey if you want to, but you really start to develop this third eye sensation. And it makes you ask questions. And it makes you go, why?
Yeah, it does.
Why?
Well, and it makes me wonder, is that why cannabis has been prohibited for so long? Is because we needed that
yes, I believe so.
In our evolution, right? There's more to it. There's more to prohibition than just racial bias and criminality and all these things. Like, there's an underlying hidden secret that it's manifestly good for us, and that's why it was prohibited, and people should be pissed off.
Right. Some people call... I've had a guest in the past who was non-cannabis that all of a sudden saw the benefits of cannabis in her son, and she became an advocate, and she labeled herself an advocate by accident. There was no plan, no nothing. It was a life trauma experience that all of a sudden changed everything.
That's how I was too. My plan wasn't to be an activist either. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I never would have thought. In fact, the very first advocate event that I did was the National Cannabis March in the spring of 2016 back home in Oregon. First time I ever wore a pot leaf in my life, too. And I'm walking the streets in my hometown, yelling and screaming about cannabis and telling people how wonderful it is. And so, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I know I am doing what I meant to do because in 2011, 3 years before I even had the thought of cannabis, I had a dream 3 times, and I was standing up in a very large stadium arena holding a book I'd written, giving a motivational speech. I had no clue what that meant back then. Had the dream 3 times. I definitely know what the hell it means now.
It is. Okay, Amy. We're going to get through the shout out and wrap up the show and stuff. We're going to have you come back on the program again. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All
sure,
right.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on.
There's, even the experiences of dealing with Capitol Hill and all this other stuff. I'd like to hear more about that. So we'll have to have you back on again. But we're going to wrap things up. Shout out. Where can people find you? You got a Facebook page, a website, whatever.
My Facebook page, my main one is Amy Mellen, Mellen. I also have my One Beautiful Hot Mess page. It's all one word. You can also look me up on Facebook for my CBD candies. Those are called Hot Mess Suckies, Suckies. And they were named by a little granny that started trying out Suckies for her cancer pain. And so those are the places you can find me on social media. I'm also One Beautiful Hot Mess on Instagram. You can reach me by hotmesssuckies at email.com or at gmail.com, onebeautifulhotmess@gmail.com, and I will have our website up and going within about 30 days.
Good stuff. Awesome. Alicia?
So I would really like to thank Amy for coming on and sharing your story. It's a strong story of powerful encouragement, so thank you. And as always, thank you, Al and Al, for doing what you do.
You're welcome. And I can hear Al saying, you're welcome.
Behind the baggie. Behind the diarizer now.
Okay, yeah, he can't say it himself. That's right. Okay, let's see. I was just going to say happy birthday to my wife again. Happy birthday, Gail.
Aww.
So, and I want to remind everybody that we've been nominated for a Canadian Cannabis Award. If you're interested in voting, you just go to the CanadianCannabisAwards.com and you'll see us listed under the top podcast category. Let's see. Next week, Kim Cooper joins me, and her guest is Chester Gerard. He's a.k.a. Dr. Bud. He'll be joining us on the first day of legalization. We'll see what his thoughts are on that. Yes. We met him at the Indigenous Cannabis Cup, the Cannabis Cup, the Music Fest.
Cool.
Yeah, we met him down there, so it was good. Okay, you can find the Pace Radio Show. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter at Pace Radio, Instagram, Pace Radio Show. We're online, pace-online.ca. Thank yous always to our friendly and helpful folks at CC Nexus. They're found at ccnexus.global. To Canadays and Camel for providing Pace with a place to do our podcast, or broadcast, as well as to distribute to our cannabis educational information. To Al Rapp, the man with the baggie in one hand and the Shatterizer in the other, and also assisting patients tonight at the lounge at Ganjanistas in Hamilton. He was down there tonight helping out some patients. That was great of him. Also, Amy, thank you for appearing on the show tonight. We appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Sure, thanks a lot. And I forgot to mention one more place that they can look us up is Canna Ladies, KANNALADIS on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, good stuff. We'll have to do that. Yes.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have yourself. I'm so excited for you. You guys are going to party like crazy in a week when you go legal.
Thank you so much.
We hopefully your federal government will change their minds.
Yeah,
they will eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
My gut says 2020, baby.
2020. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Alicia, for everything you do.
No worries.
And thank you to our listeners. Thank you for tuning in the program. Thank you, and good night.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.